Welcome to the Soft Life with Sadie Baddies. Sadie Baddies is the antidote to mental health stigma, and this podcast is hosted by yours truly, Priscilla O. Adjaman. We are a virtual sanctuary centering Black and multiracial people, and we prioritize the mental and emotional nourishment that is the foundation of collective healing in our communities. Thank you for being here. Hello, welcome back to the Soft Life podcast. I am your host, Priscilla Poku Adjaman, and I am the founder of Sadie Baddies, which is the beautiful wellness community and digital media company started by yours truly. And I just want to welcome you back into this space and just give yourself a minute to ground into your space, your environment, wherever you are. Some of y'all might be driving in your car or listening as you do things around the house or while you're on the train and on your way to work. And I'm just so grateful that you chose to drop in and tune into another episode. There has been so much going on globally, externally, geopolitically. We have the Olympics happening. There's an election. Like there's so much going on right now. So I'm really glad that you chose to take a moment and invite some softness into your life through listening to this episode. Just a quick little mini life update. Nothing major, but just wanted to share where I've been, kind of my headspace has been over the last few weeks during the summer. I think I've been striking a balance of being outside, but also being inside and being really productive and also preparing for the rest of the year and not just focusing only on summer, but looking at what the next 3 months look like, what my winter or my fall is going to look like, not just my summer. So I've been really focusing on that. I signed up, my fiance and I signed up for a new gym membership a few months ago, and it's been awesome because I've been taking classes, I've been taking hot yoga, Pilates, I've been doing strength training, the sauna, the steam room, all the things. So it's really given me a moment to be grounded every day and be in my body. You know, as someone who's a chronic overthinker, it is really hard sometimes to be in your body and physically feel, you know, your presence and be grounded. So I love that I've been giving myself an outlet every day to, you know, practice movement. And yeah, I've just been focusing on my physical health more than anything and still making time to nurture my relationship. So that's where I've been right now. And today's episode is actually about how to enter your grown woman era. And it's also going to be talking about some things that I personally just find to be very chic, very sophisticated. And a lot of people ask me, you know, my thoughts and opinions on, oh, how do you get this signature look? Or how do you do this? Or how do you do that? Especially when I share on my personal Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, I kind of share a mix of both my personal life mixed in with like the work that I do and my day to day. So I've been also just seeing this trending on TikTok and people sharing things that they find incredibly chic. And I just think it's going to be a fun way to share some ways that we can invite softness into our life through our actual practices and our mindset shift. But let's start with the whole grown woman era thing, right? I think when it comes to having a grown woman era, the way that I defined it is having a grown woman era means focusing on this version of yourself that is mature, that is self-assured and self-trusting. And your grown woman era essentially is the space between girlhood and womanhood. It is about embodying growth, confidence, and having a deeper understanding of yourself. You can also think of your grown woman era like a period of time where you step fully into your power. It's about acknowledging your worth, your self-worth, and being able to navigate life with this sense of clarity and purpose. And that just comes with age and maturing. It's also about owning your experiences in life and not looking down at past versions of yourself or shaming yourself for what you didn't know, but instead making new decisions that align with who you are right now and cultivating a lifestyle that reflects that maturity and that wisdom. So that is what a grown woman era is to me. And I definitely feel like I'm in my grown woman era, not only because I'm in my 30s, I'm in my early 30s, and it's been such a journey of like rediscovering yourself. It's kind of true what people say about when you're in your 30s, it's like you are relearning yourself all over again. And in a way that your 20s just felt a little bit different. This era, this decade that I'm in specifically definitely feels way more grown, way more mature, and for me that comes in a lot of ways. That comes in the what I choose to do on the weekends, who I choose to spend my time with, how I choose to show up and present myself to the world. So in all these little ways, I am entering, and I have been in, I would say, in my grown woman era. So if you're like me, and this episode is really especially for someone who is maybe in their late 20s and they're going to enter their 30s this year or later, or maybe you're even further along in life and you're well into your 40s, or even later in life. It's not really a very specific age that I would say you enter your grown woman era, but it's more of this intuitive feeling that when you know that you're in that era, you are. um I would also say that this episode is dedicated to anyone who feels like they might have been a late bloomer, or what I like to call slow to sprout. So, a late bloomer essentially is somebody who didn't have the same milestones in life experiences as their peers based on whatever circumstances. It could be because your family, might have sheltered you. It could be your environment. Maybe you grew up in the suburbs and you never really got a chance to go to the city or experience life or travel. Or it could also mean that maybe you haven't had those milestones in your relationships, or you haven't had the same type of experiences that your friends might share with you, or they come way later in life. I 1000% am a late bloomer, and I'm just here to tell you that there is no perfect time to have these experiences. They will come when they come. I mean, for example, I didn't get into my first real relationship until I was 25 with my now fiance, and I felt like so weird being one of the only people in my friend group who was single and not really knowing, like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And trying to not compare myself, but also feeling a little bit awkward and a little isolated from having that experience of like a romantic partnership. So we'll get into all of that. But yeah, this episode is really about anyone who's ready to embrace their maturity and step confidently into their true self. So let's talk about how you can embody your grown woman era. What does that mean? So, me, we got to start with self-reflection, right? So first, I would say think about the younger version of yourself and who you were growing up, and ask yourself, what did you like, what did you dislike, and what are the things that still remain true for you? What are the things that no longer resonate, right? I mean, we've talked about healing your inner child, we've talked about how to reconnect with yourself and all those things, but really think just more on a kind of a general level, like who was the 16 version of yourself, right? Who were they? How did they act? How did they move through the world? And I think that actually informs us a lot about who we are today, and we can kind of learn how to shed anything that doesn't resonate to that version of ourselves. Or you can kind of speed it up. It could be maybe the version of you when you were sorry, I'm going to take a sip. So maybe it could be the version of yourself when you were 21, or whoever you were, and it could be the things that you tolerated at that young age versus now, right? And hindsight is 2020. So when we take a moment to look back and reflect, and this is why I always recommend journaling or keeping some type of documentation of your life and your growth, because you would be surprised, like even 6 months ago you were probably so different than how you are now. I know I 6 months ago was in a completely different headspace than I am right now. So documenting those moments, and like I always say, document the moments you feel most like yourself and refer to them often. The next thing you can do to start embracing the grown woman era and the essence of having that grown woman energy is to have maturity in your actions and your choices. This does not come without taking accountability for yourself. So instead of being the person that plays the blame game or is constantly playing the victim, when you enter your grown woman era, you can be real with yourself and say, I fucked up. I made a mistake. That was wrong. I made an error, and you can be honest with yourself and not always blame other people for your outcomes and the circumstances that you're in. Part of being in your grown woman era is being brutally honest with yourself, but doing it with love and compassion so that you're not also sabotaging your own growth. So another way that you can embrace and having this maturity in your choices and your actions is to learn new skills, and having a mindset of being open to learning new things, whether it's a new language, taking up a new hobby, meeting new people, whatever it is. What As long as you are trying to embrace that newness and you are open to it, that is inevitably going to only make you more of a dynamic person, right? So having that openness to learn new things, or maybe it's you wanting to move to a new city or be, have a new job or have a different opportunity, and not staying stuck because you feel like you don't have the resources or you don't have the tools to pivot, right? And if you want to know more about this episode, more about this topic, you can listen to our episode about knowing when to quit and how to pivot, because we talk all about that and the signs of like, okay, how do I know when I'm supposed to switch gears, basically, and take a calculated risk. When you are able to be in your grown woman era, you can take more calculated risk, and that also comes from trusting yourself. So I would say one of the biggest things of learning how to trust yourself is to care less about how other people perceive you, and focus more on how you are perceived by yourself, and not worrying so much about the opinions of other people. Having your identity chained to the opinions of other is the quickest way to lose trust in yourself, because when you are constantly looking for validation from other people, it is so hard to make decisions that really feel mind and body connected, that really feel holistic to you. And especially with this era that we're in social media, where people don't even know how to make a decision without asking thousands of people, or creating a poll about it or doing whatever. And sometimes that's just for engagement. We know that, right? We all know social media is also a tool that we use to engage with other people. But I'm saying, if you're making big life decisions, or you're constantly going online to try to validate how you're thinking or how you're feeling, or your next move, how is that going to make you have a more solid foundation in who you are, and make more mature, trustworthy, reliable decisions for yourself, right? You're putting too much trust in other people who may not even understand or be able to recognize or relate to your circumstances. So definitely encourage you, if this is something that you have a habit of doing, and this could be something like constantly asking your friends for their opinion, or always running to people and wanting them to problem solve for you. You need to be able to have the confidence to say, I know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't have to constantly ask people what they think I should do. You have to learn how to trust yourself, but that doesn't come without time. Um, Another way, and another point about embracing your grown woman era, is thinking more long term about your decisions, not just the present, the temporary, but or the self-gratifying decisions, but really thinking long and hard how what you're doing now is going to affect you. And there are three main things that I would say are crucial. And the first one is your relationships. This includes, yes, the person you're dating, the person you're talking to. Maybe in your early 20s, you're talking to people that are like not the great fit for you, but when you are in your 30s and 40s and 50s and beyond, those mistakes become way, way, way more impactful. And I think I saw a tweet that said, basically, the whole thing about aging is that it's not that you can't make mistakes, it's that your mistakes become more expensive over time. And that is so true, right? So if you meet the wrong person, or you get into the relationship with someone who is not good for you and is not compatible or aligned with who you are and who you need to be, and you stay with that person for 4 or 5, 6 or longer, however many years or how many months you end up being with that person, and when you're in your 20s, you can kind of like, whatever, shrug it off, break up with them. But if you're in your 30s and you end up being with that person for way longer than you need to be, you're setting yourself back. You are setting yourself back so much by being with that person, because they are not going to help you grow. They're not going to help you to progress. So you have to decide again and use that maturity and that wisdom to really understand what are the decisions that are going to affect me long term. Like right now, this person could be really comfortable. It could be somebody that you get along with, you guys vibe, whatever, but there's still something missing, or they don't have the same values as you. Long term, that's going to be an issue. So just being mindful of that. And so I would say your relationships, this also goes for friendships too, not just romantic relationships, of course. The next is your career. Staying at like a dead end job, right? That's, I know right now is like a very touchy, sensitive subject, because a lot of us are struggling with the job market. We don't know what direction to go to. We're getting no's, we're getting ghosted by interviewees, and all of the things that come with trying to just live in this capitalistic society. However, the specific job or the specific career that you're in does determine a lot of what is going to be ultimately what how much you can obtain in terms of your wealth, in terms of the access that you have to resources, in terms of the connections and opportunities that you have. So again, staying at somewhere because it's safe versus being able to take a calculated risk and move forward, that's also something that you have to realize as a grown woman. You got to realize, okay, this is a dead end job, or this is not going anywhere. I don't think I'm going to be growing here. How can I find the next opportunity that's going to align with me? And a lot of that's going to be through your connections, right? I think a lot of us are realizing that it's not just like signing up on LinkedIn and applying for a job and just wishing for the best and crossing our fingers. A lot of it is actually getting out there and meeting the right people that can align with the goals and the long-term goals that we have for ourselves. So definitely thinking about your career more long term versus just short term. And that's going to also reflect in the jobs that you have, right? Most of the time when you're in your early 20s, you're not making that much money. I mean, I know when I started working, I was making literally just above, literally, quite literally, the poverty level. So I was really struggling when I first got out of school, and then gradually was able to increase my income through job hopping. But that's a topic for another day, okay? But honestly, making that decision was one of the best things I did, because I was able to multiply my annual income several times over just by making those switches and making those calculated risks. And lastly, I would say your environment. Where are you living? What is the town or the city that you're in? What does it feel like to you? Does it inspire you? Do you have community there? Do you feel like you're part of something bigger? And these are questions that, maybe in the short term, it might work for you, but long term, is this where you want to be when you are retiring? Is this where you want to be when you want to start a family or be in a long-term relationship or marriage, etc.? So when you start thinking about more long-term of those decisions, that's going to help you to make those investments, those time investments, so that you're not wasting time in a space or a job or in a relationship that you don't want to be in. Um, the next thing is definitely something that I think is kind of underrated, but having more of like a signature to your look, your appearance, and just embracing that authenticity, right? So I definitely think having like a signature look is one of the best ways to start kind of playing around with entering your grown women era. And I'm not just saying go to Sephora and go crazy. Like, honestly, if that's what you want to do, go ahead, sis. But I will say also that when you are learning how to dress for your body, when you are learning how to, pick a fragrance that you love, right? Or have that signature like finish in your makeup or your hair or your nails or your outfit, your wardrobe, that's honestly one of the best ways to start embracing your grown woman era. These are all things that I've truly like planned for. When I turned 30 a couple years ago, I was like, okay, it's not that I have to throw away everything that I own, but I definitely took a very, very, very hard look at my closet and I swapped out things, right? It's like, okay, let me replace this with something that's more higher quality. Let me invest in certain pieces that I know I'm going to need for not just parties or happy hour, but I'm going to need for weddings, for events, for speaking engagements, for vacations, right? Those experiences are more elevated the older you get. So instead of just focusing on, okay, well, what do I need to wear to the club for this weekend? Think more long term. Maybe you can buy something that can double as like, I mean, it's kind of hard, but if you could figure out something that you can wear, maybe like drinks with the girls, right? Versus like the club, because that's like a whole different vibe. But, maybe find things that you can wear more interchangeably. And that's an investment in yourself as well. And this also ties into my next point of just prioritizing self care, understanding the importance of your mental health, your physical health, your financial health. That is one of the biggest components of entering your grown woman era, is being able to take a look at all those components and be more holistic about what it really means to have a well rounded like life and lifestyle. Another thing that I would say is just seeking your growth and development through having continuous opportunities to learn and also self reflect. So, this goes into therapy, journaling, somatic healing, even developing your spirituality if you are someone who's spiritual or religious. Having time to dedicate to that, that is part of your grown woman era for a couple of reasons. One, because it's going to connect you to what makes you truly feel alive, and it's going to connect you to having a space where you can decompress and be yourself and also do some self-reflection. But when you do this, you also start to become a role model for other people. When you spend time doing deep reflection, and you're introspective, and you take time to, again, be accountable, you become a role model for other people around you. And I think that's why so many people, tune into this podcast and they listen to it. It's not because of me per se, but it's because what the community of Sadie Baddies represents, which is, a lot of us are diverse. We're Black, we're brown, we're Latina, we're Asian, we're a mix of people, we're white, we're so many different people who are learning how to embrace softness every single day. And when we are able to share experiences in a space like this, it allows other people to see us. We can also share tips. So many people who have come to Sadie Baddies events or in-person events have left with friends who they're still friends with to this day, because we see each other in ourselves, and we are taking the time to do the work, right? To do the therapy, to do the journaling, the taking care of our minds, our bodies, and all of those things that really make a beautiful, not only sisterhood, but community in general. So I can't emphasize that enough. Like, actually giving yourself time to do that, even if it's just 5-10 minutes a day or on your commute or whatever you're doing. If you can carve out that time daily, it's going to be such a good investment in not just yourself, but the people around you. And lastly, this goes into my last point, which is, when you cultivate meaningful connections and you also have a supportive community that aligns with your values and your aspirations. So this can come from having hobbies, from volunteering, being part of an organization, being part of a community, etc. That is definitely giving the essence of a grown woman. When I think of like a grown woman, I think of like the women who are in my family, or the women who I've looked up to, or even like through media, watching different TV shows like Sex and the City or Insecure or Girlfriends or Living Single. Like, I think about the woman who I'm like, oh, she had her shit together. She was somebody who I'm like, actually, I was at the salon today and got my hair done, and there was a woman who was sitting, and she was, making like travel plans and whatnot. But just the way that she was conducting herself, and she was just on the phone with the customer service rep, and, communicating to them like what she want, and being very selective of like the options that she had to book her trip. It was just so beautiful because, she was another Black woman. And I was just like, she is a grown woman. Like, she has her shit together. And I love that we can just witness those little moments. And it sometimes it's as simple as that, or it could be, somebody who has a career that you admire and you wanting to learn from them and have a mentor, right? So there's so many different ways to find those connections, but a lot of it is just going to be by simply saying hi to people and being, a little bit more outgoing, and not just be kind of like in our little corner all the time and only talking to our friend group, but being a little bit more extroverted. And I think a lot of us are actually a little bit more extroverted than we think we are. A lot of us have been fooled into thinking that we are super, super introverted. And I'm not saying that introverts don't exist, because trust me, I'm an introvert myself. I'm actually like in the middle. I'm like an ambivert. But, I'm just saying, I think that sometimes we think that if we don't know someone too well, we can't talk to them at all. But when you are able to get out of your comfort zone and build those connections, you will never know how many people will speak your name in a room full of opportunities when you do get out there and put yourself out there. So that is my thoughts on entering your grown woman era. It's a beautiful era to be in. It really is the gap and the bridge between girlhood and womanhood, and just having a life and a lifestyle that you're proud of, and a lifestyle that makes you happy and makes you want to get up in the morning and be motivated. There's so many content creators that do content about how to, glow up and be successful. And that's great. I definitely think we need content like that. But I do also feel like your grown woman era is kind of a more permanent space. It's not just about going to Pilates and, drinking matcha. It's also about how you treat your mind and your soul as well. So just remember that it's more of like a comprehensive POV versus just these little tiny things. But on a fun note, I want to share some things that I find to be very, very chic and have also embodied the essence of like being in my grown woman era. I made a list and I was sharing this on Instagram the other day. So I just want to share some of them with you. The rest of this will be on the Substack. And before I get into that, I just want to also share, like, this is completely subjective. Like, these are my opinions, my thoughts. So if you don't agree with it, that's totally fine. You probably have something completely different in mind of what you think is chic. But these are just things I find to be very chic and very sophisticated and embody that grown woman era essence. So the first one, of course, is having a signature scent. When you have a signature scent and someone can just tell that you are walking down the hallway because, oh, I know that smells like you. Like, I know that that's this person. She always smells good, or they always smell good. That is definitely, to me, one of the key components of being in your grown woman era is just having that signature scent. And there's so many ways to do this. If you're someone who's like, oh, I can't decide, whatever, I also am someone that I like to have different scents throughout the year for different vibes, different themes, and I wear, different fragrances. I also like to gatekeep my fragrances. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's like, this fragrance was curated that in a way that makes me feel like myself. And so I'm usually not someone who's going to like share what I'm wearing, but sometimes I will share, like, especially if it's a brand that I really love and I want to support, I'll share it, of course. But I am a little bit of a gatekeeper when it comes to that. And I think it's okay to like have like your little beauty secrets. And I think that's what makes like the essence of being a woman, is like sometimes just like, discovering that on your own and having that be like special to you. The next is having a signature drink order. This could be, of course, non-alcoholic. It doesn't have to be alcoholic, but listen, I know a lychee martini hates to see me coming because I love me a good lychee martini. And I also love a matcha, of course. If you know me, you know that I stay drinking a matcha every single day. So those are like a couple of my signature drink orders. But just having like a signature drink, like, I think it's so beautiful when like you're, having a girls' day or having a girls' night and your friends are ordering like drinks and they already know what you want to order because they know you. I think that just embodies like, oh, she's a grown woman. Next is bringing the host a gift. So if you're invited to something, a party, a function, maybe it's a dinner party, maybe it's a brunch, maybe it's your girl's birthday or whatever it is, when you bring someone a gift, and it could be something really, really small, it could be flowers, it could be a card, it could be something really, really small. But when someone's hosting you and you bring that person a gift, that is such a beautiful exchange of not only appreciation, but energy too, right? Like, that person is inviting you into their space and you're kind of reciprocating that by bringing something to them. I think that is so classy and so chic. And I do that all the time. Also, just writing thank you notes in general, whether it's a thank you email, maybe it's a brand that you worked with, maybe it's just somebody who at work who helped you out, like just saying thank you to people and explicitly saying thank you, not just like, oh, thanks, or a thumbs up, like in the message, but genuinely saying like, thank you for helping me, or thank you for doing this, or thank you for, following up on XYZ. That just shows that you have a level of consideration and compassion and class that I think more people should definitely do. You would be surprised how many people will ask you for stuff, myself included. People have asked me for stuff and not said thank you, which I think is crazy because Honestly, if you're going to ask somebody for a favor, the least you could do is say thank you, right? Especially if it's a big favor, especially when it comes to business. So I definitely think more people should practice that. And, manners are not dead. You can definitely text or pick up the phone or send a thank you card to someone who's helped you before. So yeah, do not skip out on being appreciative. And this also goes with another thing that I do often, which is just giving flowers to my loved ones. I think giving flowers to people is such a beautiful gesture. It doesn't have to be, the big, huge bouquet with like 200 roses. It could be something small. It could be literally a single rose. I mean, me, I like to have at least a couple dozen. But anyway, I think as long as you feel, like you're giving that person something that they can appreciate, or maybe it's their favorite plant like an orchid or something like that, I think that's just such a sweet gesture to do. Another thing that I find to be very chic and very like mysterious and kind of sexy is when you kind of ghost social media, like you just go ghost every now and then you pop up with like new hair, a new look, a new job. You're in a different city, you move. Maybe you're pregnant, maybe you got a baby, you got married, whatever. I just think that there's something so cool about that. And I love when I see people, I'm like, damn, I haven't seen this person on my timeline in a minute. And then they pop out and they're like in Bali. Like, I just love that. I love that. I think that's like, you're being so intentional about being in the moment and living your life offline, that it does create a little bit of mystery and like mystique about you, which I just find to be very alluring. As someone who is, a chronic yapper and also has to be online a lot for the sake of the business, of course, I do take my social media breaks too. But I think there's a lot of ways to do this. It could just be like you like not oversharing in general, which is definitely something that I practice because yeah, I don't think everything needs to be shared online. Another thing that I love about being in your grown woman era and just being effortlessly and incredibly chic is when you just know way too much about a very obscure topic. Like, I love when I talk to someone and they're like telling me something about like quantum physics or like stock trading or like mid-century art or something that's just like very specific and they know a lot about it. I love that. I think that's so interesting. And this comes from obviously you just experiencing life, maybe something that you're reading, a podcast, a book, a film, a museum that you've been to, being an interesting person, like not just talking about the same things over and over again, but truly being in your grown woman era is being able to diversify your interests. So I love when you can just talk to someone who knows so much about a specific topic and it, or maybe knows a little bit about multiple topics, but just somebody that you can learn from and just someone who's smart, cultured, interesting, just has a lot of like a diverse way of thinking about the world and isn't just like narrow minded basically about, everything. So just someone who's just very like well versed. I think that is very, very chic. And the next thing I think is more subtle, but I think it's very, very chic when somebody is like in a group, like in a group setting, and you're like just a slightly quieter person. Like when you're somebody who's just like listening actively and not interrupting, but then like maybe you just whip out like a funny story or like you just kind of break the ice. And, I think there's something about being able to work a conversation and it's like the art of conversation, right? If you're in a big group of people and everyone's kind of talking over each other, it's really hard to really feel like you're connected to the conversation. But if you're the person who's just like, oh, like, maybe someone got interrupted and you're like, oh, wait, what were you saying? And you like draw your attention back to that person. Love that. Chef's kiss. I think that's so sophisticated, very classy, very much giving chic, and just also like a way of being remembered. Like people will remember that when you're in a group of people and you were that one person who wasn't interrupting, they're always going to look at you as like, oh my God, she's such a good listener, or they're such a good listener, or they're really like tapped in and they really like were focusing on what I was saying. And people really, really love that. So there's also so many videos about like the art of conversation. If you're somebody who's like socially awkward, or you might feel like you are, or you just don't know how to operate in like social situations. And also there's just some times where we have differences, like we could just not feel comfortable in social environments. That doesn't mean that you're weird or anything like that, but I think when you can kind of learn some of those like social cues, it will take you very, very, very far. And lastly, I think it's very chic when you have a playlist for everything like we do. So again, if you are not tuned into Sadie Baddies playlist, definitely check it out below. Also, Dos Catorce has monthly playlists that they put out as well, which is our production, and you will definitely see the links in our bio, in the show notes. But I hope that this episode was a good way for you to embrace your grown woman era. If you really want to, kind of start this journey of transitioning from like girlhood to womanhood, or doing this like self-reflection, or you just want a really simple practical way of doing that, I definitely encourage you to download our self-care guide, which is on our website. It's in the show notes, but it is a self-guided um, self-love journey. It's called My Journey to Self-Love. And we created that to literally help you through this transition. And a lot of the practices are very simple, very easy to adopt, and you can incorporate it into your healing journey. You can incorporate it into your wellness journey. And if you're someone who's already in therapy, but you just kind of like want something a little bit extra to do that's like just a little bit more self-reflective and introspective, definitely encourage you to check it out. So that'll be in our show notes. But yeah, I hope that you enjoy this episode. I had fun just chatting with you and talking about the things that I feel like embody like being a grown woman. And yeah, I hope that you stay soft, and I will see you very soon. Have a great week. To stay connected, join Sadie Baddies on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and more, and sign up for our monthly newsletter on SaddieBaddies.com to stay in the loop. Sending you hella love, and stay soft, baddie.